Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to talk about the cell theory. And one of your objectives on your study guide, lecture study guide is state the basic principles of the cell theory. There's three major parts to that cell theory. The information right here and right here is really good background. In fact, some of this history is also talked about in one of the videos you do in lab, I'm sorry. So the cell theory has three parts. It says a cell is the basic unit of life. So living organisms are can be single-celled or they can be multicellular. And so what we know is the smallest living thing is going to be a single-celled organism. So the basic unit of life is a cell. If we start talking about things like molecules and atoms, those are the things that cells are made of, and we call them non-living because they're below the level of a cell, or they're smaller than the level of a cell. The second part of the cell theory is all organisms are made up of cells, or all living organisms are made up of cells. And so far this has been true. We haven't found living organisms that are not made of cells. In fact, if we find things like viruses that seem to have some autonomous functions but are not made of cells, we don't consider them living. So viruses would be considered non-living. So all living organisms are made of cells, whether you're single-celled or multicellular. And then the third part of the cell theory, which is down here and not highlighted for some reason, is that new cells arise only from pre-existing cells. And it's kind of funny to look back on the history of science and realize how much time scientists spent and how much effort to demonstrate that life does not arise spontaneously, that you need life to produce life. And it sounds very logical to us right now, but it's been an effort to convince everybody, convince the scientific community that this is true. So we now work this into the cell theory, and we say new cells arise only from pre-existing cells. So you can read some of that and get that background. So that's what I want you to know about the cell theory. While you're looking at cells and thinking about cells, notice in these photographs, it's showing you that cells have distinctly different appearances. Here's some red blood cells, and they're very round with a depression in the middle. Turns out that that shape gives them a lot of surface area, so they can exchange oxygen between the red blood cells, the lungs, and all of our other cells. Nerve cells communicate with each other, so they have these branches and reach out to other cells where they make these complex networks. So again, the shape of that cell is going to determine what it can do. And these are some crazy looking cells they're called osteocytes, and they're embedded in that hard material you know is bone. And they again also have their unique structure and function. So that's the cell theory and a little bit about cells.